So today's community questions. Before we do that, I want to quickly tell you about the website if you've never seen it before. It also has updated for the people that haven't been following me over the recent months. I have a collection of courses, anywhere from 8 to 10 hours long, going over everything DaVinci Resolve. With those courses, you'll learn a ton of information. And if you feel like you know enough about DaVinci Resolve, but you might want to speed up the workflow and get a bunch of pre-made assets, it is all a part of that. Additionally, to go with all of that, if you do have specific questions for your project or DaVinci Resolve and you want to ask me directly, a part of that pro membership, there is a line of communication that I can assist you in helping out with any questions that you do have. But going further, for me personally, I've been actually working on this, which is a pretty cool way of displaying progression. If it's you could use it for a bunch of different things, but I'll just quickly show you. It's just like a little progression bar. And these are the kind of things that you get a part of the pro membership that I'm continuously working on. Last week, I created a bunch of leaders and a bunch of other things that go along with those. If you've never seen those before, it's like the little bits that are before a film. So the first question is asking, is it worth it to film and edit in HDR right now? He's looking to buy a Mac Studio and the HDR monitor, but he doesn't know if it's worth it or should wait another year. This would really come down to, personally, I would say it comes down to who you're creating the content for. If your customers are requesting HDR, then you kind of want to satisfy their requests. But for me personally, I wouldn't deal with HDR just because it's adding more complexity to something that isn't really utilized that much. I don't really know what the statistics are right now, but I can give a perfect example as resolution. I believe that probably, and I'm just pulling these numbers out, but if you really think about it, probably 80% of YouTube is still watched in 1080, even though that, people are creating content in 4K, some are creating it in 8K. One, do the people have the necessary resources to actually view it at that resolution? A lot of people are watching on their phones. Some phones are, have HDR displays, but the majority of people, I doubt, actually have HDR displays. If people are watching it on a normal television, going through like a Fire Stick or anything like that, majority of that content isn't going to be pulling a HDR version of the content. That's, what I personally think. I don't have any concrete evidence of this, but, I really don't think that it is super necessary. I don't think that people are going to notice a big difference, if you have content on, let's say, the internet, if it's HDR or SDR. And then also the conversions in dealing with all of that, when you're viewing the raw material before it goes through any of these platforms, like let's say you are working with a client and then you send it in an email, a HDR version. Do they have the necessary viewer? And are the profiles to go from HDR to SDR, are they going to be correct? Or are they going to be viewing something that's very muddy looking and so on? So there's a lot of variables that kind of get thrown into the mix when you step up to newer technologies that aren't that widespread, I should say. So I personally wouldn't do it. Okay, so the next one is talking about organization, but they're asking about organization across DaVinci Resolve, and it seems like they're kind of all over the place. I think they're talking about templates and macros. So it really depends on how if you're getting templates and macros from other people. A part of it is how they're creating it. So let me quickly show you here. If I go over to the edit page, now I have a ton of templates because I obviously make them. I guess I should actually show you the screen. But if we have, let's say, we go into video transitions. If I scroll down here, we can see that in my transitions here, and I close all of these, we can see that my transitions, the ones that are on my website, they are broken down into a separate folder, I guess is the best way to put that, right? And then inside that folder, then we have all of those template files. Now, it really comes down to whoever is making it, right? So there is a way to do this with the bundles. If you ever look into DaVinci Resolve Fusion bundles, I guess is the best way to put that. If you look into, or the template bundles, if you look into that, there is some ways to do this, but whoever is creating the templates should be putting them into a bundle file, which then in the bundle file, it can then create the folder and everything else, the proper structure to be able to do that. If you're talking about, because there's a little bit of talk about Fusion. Fusion works a little bit different than the edit page, because Fusion, we can make our own folders. When you go to add anything into the effects library, now I know mine looks a little bit different because it's going across the bottom, but in your templates, when you go into Fusion, right, in your Fusion folder, so in here, we can create, once I click on here, if I click this little button and go show folder, this is going to open this up, and we can actually create our own folders and then put all of our template files in there, right? And that would also be shown over here. So we were in here, and then we went into the JRTV infographics, and then we went to Luna callouts, right? And that will be represented over here, as we can see the Fusion. And then that would go into the JRT infographics, which would then go into the Luna callout, as you can see there. So we have that. And then if I come into here, we also have the custom. And this pack's a little bit different for the whole custom thing. But that would also be shown here. Now, that's only something that you can really do on the Fusion page, to make folders like that inside of your File Explorer or whatever, depending on which operating system you're using, that you can actually do that. For the stuff that's on the edit page as well as in the color page, it has to be done the way that the bundle files are created. So it's slightly different. As you can see here, if I go into my titles, we have a bunch of folders in here, all of the free titles that are available on my website. If you're interested in that, you can go there. And then that has a whole like installer process where it's a one button click, and it creates all of this stuff so that this is all structured properly. And that really comes down to the person that is creating them. There is some information that you could probably find online on how to do that. If you're not that familiar with making the bundle files, you could quickly get lost in that, but that's kind of at least a little bit of information if you want to explore that on how to properly do that. So then the next one is talking about, I guess they're coming from the world of photography where they have thousands of images and they like to go through them, and it looks like they're being able to star them, color them, add keywords, and so on, like a level of organization. And you can actually do that from within DaVinci Resolve as well, using the metadata. And then as far as being able to group them, once you add that information in, you can use something that is referred to as smart bins. So if I come over to the media page, let me quickly show you here. We have these smart bins here that are on by default. You can create more smart bins, but I want to quickly show you, and so that the smart bin, so this is currently by keywords. If I click on, let's say, a clip here, and we come up here to metadata, we have some metadata based off of this particular clip, but there is significantly more metadata that we can actually dive into. So up here by default, we have a default here set. You can set this up so that you can only see specific stuff, but I want to quickly just show you everything. Click the little drop down, we show all groups, and this is all of the metadata that every single clip can have. And you can also make the smart bin. So when we're filtering all that stuff, so if you have 1,000 clips and then you start to go through each one, we can go through that 1,000 through the clips, color them, add keywords in, and that will all be specific to down here. So if I add a keyword, I add a keyword of girl, I can now see that there's a little thing here, and we can see all of the girl clips here, right? So that's kind of how it would work. There is obviously color in here. And I believe that, okay, right there, good take. So like if that's the one that you wanted to use, and then you could also go through and it all gets specific based off of the kind of work you're doing here. If you actually want to put this in, typically while you're on set, there's someone that's logging all of this stuff in or that's going through dailies and writing this all in. But there's a ton of different fields here that you could go through, and you can always have all of this information create smart bins. And you can also create smart bins that have rules. So you could have it say, a perfect example of if it has a good take, so like we can make a smart bin. If it has a good take, the clip color is orange and it has girl, then it would go into a specific smart bin. And you can make a whole set of rules for these smart bins. And then the smart bins can, a clip can be in multiple bins based off of whatever the rule set is. So that would be in, let's say, girl, I make a smart bin called girl, orange, good take, right? That could be in one bin. But then in the keywords bin, there will also be a bin that says girl, and that clip would still be in there. So it's not like it can only be in one bin and not in the other bin. It can be in whatever the bins are, depending on the rules that we have set for those bins. But you're going to want to take a look at smart bins. I actually have a whole video going over metadata smart bins on the website if you do want to take a look at that with the whole course thing. If not, there's probably a ton of stuff on YouTube that goes over smart bins and metadata specifically. So the next one that we will go over, I would love to know how to face track. You know, I've seen memes where the picture over the face. Okay, so you want to track something on someone's face. So I've seen the whole meme thing with two different looks, but let me quickly find a clip here that would actually work for this. All right, I'll quickly show you. We're just gonna use a dog instead of a person. And so there's a couple of different, now I'm not too sure exactly what you're looking to do here, but you could do a couple of different things. So I just opened this up by hitting Shift and Spacebar so I can type in here. And I'm just gonna pull up a tracker and feed my video into the tracker, right? And then I will move my tracker to, let's move it to like the dog's little snout here. Okay. So we'll just go on, let's just go on the little snout there. And I will change this so it's every 2 frames, best match. And we'll change the tolerance up a little bit. And all right, so this video is actually pretty long, but let's let that track quick. Okay, so that was kind of a poor track, but it kind of worked. So let's click on it. So it was on the nose pretty long, and then it slips. So everything's good. So right there, it loses. Let's see if I can readjust that to the little snout. Try that again. Okay, so it loses a little bit here. We'll go to 1. Try that again. Okay, so there we go. We're pretty much on the snout now. And so all we would have to do from here is now we have something on there. So let's, I'll just make a little dot. We'll make a green dot so I can show you. So this could be like any type of video clip that you're going to put on, right? And so I'll just make this smaller. So this is my video clip. And all I have to do now is whatever is going to control the movement. So this merge is going to control my movement, right? I just have to move that onto the tracker information. So if I highlight both of these and I go into my merge, and so I have that center, we're going to grab that and we're going to pick the track center position. So now we have a green nose on our dog. So as you can see there, the dog starts moving a little bit. I think you get the gist though, right? Okay, so that's how that would work. Now, the other way that I've seen stuff like this before is if I actually use a transform and we go in, right? So sometimes I would see like where it's zoomed in. So what I can do here instead is I'll highlight both of these and I'll go into my transform. Instead, I'll grab the pivot because I want it to pivot based off of the nose. So now we have the pivot on the nose. And now if I zoom in here, let's actually view this. If I zoom in here, and then we can move this, right? So let's put it in the middle. Now we can see that now we're tracking on the dog's nose, right? So throughout the whole shot, the background's moving. I've also seen this before where the background's moving, but you know, the dog's nose stays right in the middle, right? So that is an option that you have as well. And if we take a look at, you know, what's going on here, you know, hopefully that makes sense in how the differences between both of those are. But yeah, that's how we would go about doing that. All right, so the next one is how did I get so knowledgeable in DaVinci Resolve and why did I choose to use DaVinci Resolve over other software? So I started using DaVinci Resolve when a program called Adobe Lightroom, no wait, Adobe SpeedGrade, wow. When Adobe SpeedGrade stopped, they killed off Adobe SpeedGrade. That's when I wanted to look for another coloring tool. And so I was looking around and then I found DaVinci Resolve. I knew about DaVinci Resolve before this point, but before this point, the only way to get DaVinci Resolve is a normal license, which at the time you had to buy their hardware. So if you've ever seen the advanced panel, it's $30,000. So at that time, that was the only way to get it. Just starting out, didn't really have 30 grand to blow on just a piece of software that could just do coloring. So I kind of waited. And then when SpeedGrade died, then DaVinci Resolve added in their edit tool. And when they added in their edit tool, it was kind of bad. There wasn't much. You could cut, you know, and put together a sequence, but outside of that, there wasn't much, but they had their whole color suite that was available. So I still edit it in Adobe Premiere and then color grade it in SpeedGrade. So I had to do the whole, you know, going from one program to the other and then back. So the whole round tripping was always a pain. And then over the course of time, Blackmagic added in a bunch of tools into DaVinci Resolve on the edit page to turn it into a full-blown editor, which I didn't really need all the tools that were added in, but once the tools were added in where I felt like I wasn't missing out in the Premiere world, I then jumped over. And so that's how I kind of went from one to the other. A lot of people watch my content based off of Fusion, and the switch from After Effects to Fusion really wasn't that difficult because they're kind of the same, but still a little different. They're the same in, we can get the same end product out of both of them for the most part. And what I like to explain to people is if I told you, I gave you a box of art supplies and I said, I want you to write on here 365. Well, in the box, you could do it with a paintbrush and some paint. You could do it with a crayon. You could do it with a marker. You could do it with a pen or a pencil. They will all get you to get the same, for the most part, end result, right? Getting that message across of 365. They all work kind of the same and they're all slightly different, right? So that's kind of the difference between the two. And the easiest way to explain it, all you really have to do is get your head around how nodes work and the slight differences between working in both environments. Once you have that, the majority of the tools are kind of the same. They're built, pretty much the same way. Just slight differences between the two. Once you understand that, you can kind of build anything that any application uses that, is kind of like a compositing application. But yeah, so that's, I was able to take my knowledge from one and bring it over to the other, which made things a lot easier. And over time, you then learn, okay, well, hold on. Instead of doing this super linear way, I'm using nodes now. So I can just pull information from this other area instead of having to nest it and do all of that and pre-composite and all that BS. I could just pull it, just drag it from one out to an in way over in this other area within my node tree there, or node flow. And yeah, so I could just use that. And then I was like, whoa, nodes make this significantly easier to work with and kind of do like an easy prototyping, because you can just simply move stuff around. You kind of can in After Effects, but it's just a little different, right? And I just found that this workflow, once you wrap your head around it, is significantly easy. So that's my way that I went about doing it. When I started doing it, there wasn't that much content online on using one program or the other. These programs were super expensive, so the only places that you could get information is if you went to some type of school for it, or it was passed down within the community, or you had to pay a really high price to go through a course and some like specialty training. So that's how I went through it. If you want to learn how to do all this stuff, again, plugging the websites there. The training information that is on the website is actual curriculum from Blackmagic. I am a Blackmagic training partner for DaVinci Resolve Fusion Fairlight. So you could take a look at all of that stuff. You could go through all the courses that I have. Anywhere from each thing is 8 to 10 hours long. You get all the training materials. And then if you want to, you can also take the certification course, which is free of charge. Once you're done with all of the actual material, once you learn all of that, you can take the certification course and you can get certified and use that to, elevate your application for the next job. So that's on learning everything in DaVinci Resolve. The next one is talking about doing screen replacements, and they're adding a lot of other stuff here with making it look more real by someone's finger, arm, whatever it may be in the way of the frame. A lot of that is going to be what you're going to be referring to as rotoscoping. As far as the screen replacement itself, not super difficult. Some tracking points to get the perspective to be aligned correctly, where a lot of people kind of, it doesn't look, you can tell that it was some type of screen replacement and it wasn't done well, is it's using the reflections that were filmed. And so if you have your phone with you right now, put it in front of you and look at the reflections from the lights in the room, the light that bounce off of something near you and your face is reflected onto the screen. Those reflections, if it's not done properly, those won't come through. If it's done well, you will have you might not be able to tell that it's someone's face or whatever it may be, but some of those reflections will still be there even though we did a full screen replacement. And that's what kind of sells that was actually on the screen. Yeah, so that is what I'm working on. Hopefully these progression bars that I'm currently working on don't take a decade to make. I'm hoping that, sometime next week it'll all be packaged and put on the website. If you do have anything that you would like to see made, you could go to the website, submit your suggestions. And if it's something that, also sparks my interest, that hasn't been thrown on my radar is something that people are interested in, I could definitely take a look at potentially making it. But yeah, that's all I have for you for today. Hopefully you're all doing well. DaVinci Resolve just recently had an update. If you opened up your DaVinci Resolve lately, there was a recent update. Maybe I should start doing update videos going over all of the different features and fixes that are from update to update. That might be an interesting thing to start doing. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But with that being said, my name's JR. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next one, Peace.